Hey everyone, we're working hard to get our first 1,000 subscribers, sign up and you won't regret it. I was 17 when my life split clean in half. Before, and after. Before was noise, doors closing, low arguments behind walls, my mom pretending everything was fine while my dad stopped looking at me directly. I didn't think much of it then. Families go through weird phases. That's what I told myself. After was silence. I came home from school one day and the house felt wrong. Too still. No TV humming in the background, no smell of food, no footsteps upstairs. Just empty space, like the air had been pulled out. At first, I thought they'd gone out. Then I saw the walls. Bare. Picture frames missing. Shelves cleared. Even the cheap clock in the kitchen, gone. That's when my stomach dropped. I remember walking slowly through each room, like if I moved too fast, I'd confirm something I wasn't ready to understand. My parents' bedroom was stripped. My sister's room, empty except for a hanger on the floor. And then I saw it. A folded piece of paper on the kitchen counter. My name written on it in my mother's handwriting. I already knew, before I opened it, that whatever was inside would ruin something permanent. The message was short. Too short. They had to leave. This was for the best. I would figure it out. That last line stuck like a splinter. You'll figure it out. No explanation. No apology. No plan. Just, gone. At 17. I didn't cry right away. I think my brain refused to process it. I just stood there, reading the note over and over, like maybe new words would appear if I stared long enough. They didn't. The first real feeling came later that night, when it got dark and I realized no one was coming back. That's when the anger hit. Not loud. Not explosive. Cold. Because leaving is one thing. But leaving your kid behind like a piece of furniture you forgot to take, that's something else. I called them. Every number I had. Disconnected. Neighbors didn't know anything. Or pretended not to. I stopped asking after a while because I could see it in their faces, they knew more than they were saying. But no one stepped in. No one helped. And somehow, that made it worse. The next few weeks blurred together. I learned fast. Too fast. How to stretch money. How to lie about my situation. How to avoid questions at school. How to survive. Because that's what it became. Survival. And somewhere in the middle of that, I made a quiet decision. I wasn't going to chase them. I wasn't going to beg for answers. If they could disappear like I meant nothing, then I would learn to live like they never existed. That was the plan. And for a while, it worked. Until 12 years later. When a name I hadn't seen in over a decade lit up my phone. And I realized. They weren't done with me yet. The first year after they left almost broke me. Not in a dramatic way. No big collapse. No moment where everything fell apart at once. It was slower than that. Like erosion. Bills I didn't understand started showing up. The landlord gave me a deadline I couldn't meet. School became background noise compared to figuring out where I'd sleep next month. I dropped out 2 months later. Not because I wanted to. Because I had to. I picked up whatever work I could find, dishwashing, stocking shelves, unloading trucks. Jobs that didn't ask questions as long as you showed up and kept your head down. I learned to disappear. People don't notice you when you don't give them a reason to. And that became my strategy. By 19, I had a small apartment. Nothing special, just 4 walls that were mine. I remember sitting on the floor the first night, eating takeout straight from the container, and thinking. I did this. Not them. Me. That mattered. Years passed like that. Quiet. Focused. I didn't let people get too close. Not because I couldn't, because I didn't see the point. Everyone leaves eventually. Some just take longer than others. Better to keep things simple. Work. Sleep. Repeat. And slowly, things improved. Better job. Then a better one. I moved into construction, then project management. Long hours, but steady money. Something I could build on. Control. That's what I cared about. Control over my life. My space. My future. By the time I hit my late 20s, I had something real. A decent apartment. A car that actually worked. Savings. Stability. Something they never gave me. And I told myself I didn't need anything else. Not answers. Not closure. Not them. That part of my life was buried. Or at least, I thought it was. Until the message came. It was a number I didn't recognize. Simple. Direct. We need to talk. No name. No explanation. But I knew. You don't forget a voice like that. Even in text. I stared at the screen longer than I should have. A dozen thoughts hit at once. Why now? What do they want? How did they even find me? And underneath all of it, something I didn't expect. Not anger. Not right away. Something closer to curiosity. Which made me uncomfortable. Because curiosity means you're open. And I wasn't supposed to be open anymore. I ignored the message. For 2 days. Then another one came. This time with a name. My father. And an address. I didn't respond. But that night, I didn't sleep. Because for the first time in 12 years, the past wasn't buried anymore. It was standing right in front of me. Waiting. And I had to decide whether I was going to open that door, or finally close it for good. I told myself I wasn't going to go. That it was a mistake. A trap. A waste of time. But 3 days later, I found myself driving anyway. Not because I forgave them. Because I needed to see it for myself. The address led to a quiet suburban street. The kind of place that looks too clean, too calm. Like nothing bad has ever happened there. Their house was at the end. Smaller than I expected. I sat in the car for a long time before getting out. My hands weren't shaking. But my chest felt tight. Not fear. Something heavier. Like unfinished business. When I finally knocked, it took only a few seconds for the door to open. And there he was. Older. Thinner. But unmistakably him. My father. For a second, neither of us moved. 12 years collapsed into silence. He looked at me like he wasn't sure I was real. I didn't feel anything at first. No rush of emotion. No reunion. Just observation. Taking inventory of a stranger who used to be my family. He stepped aside. I walked in. The house smelled like medicine. That was the first thing I noticed. The second was my mother. Sitting on the couch. Fragile. That word hit harder than anything else. She looked small. Not just physically. Like something inside her had shrunk over time. And suddenly, pieces started falling into place. Not all of them. Just enough to make things worse. They didn't start with apologies. They started with explanations. Illness. Debt. Something about losing everything and needing to leave fast. They said they thought it would be easier if I stayed behind. Easier. That word almost made me laugh. But I stayed quiet. Because something wasn't adding up. People don't abandon their kid for 12 years because things got hard. There was more. I could feel it. And then it came. Not from them. From a folder on the table. My name on it. I didn't touch it right away. I just looked at it. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't about reconnecting. It wasn't about family. It was about something else entirely. Something they needed. Something they couldn't get without me. I picked up the folder. Opened it. And as I read the first page, everything I thought I understood about why they left completely fell apart. The folder wasn't thick. But it didn't need to be. 1 page was enough. Legal documents. Medical records. And a name. Not mine. At least, not the one I'd been using my whole life. That's when it clicked. Not all at once. Piece by piece. Like a puzzle you don't want to solve, but can't stop. I wasn't abandoned because they didn't care. I was left behind because I wasn't supposed to exist. Not officially. Not legally. Something about my birth, papers that didn't match, records that didn't line up. A situation they never fully explained, but I understood enough. I wasn't just their son. I was a problem. One that could catch up to them. And apparently, it finally had. They needed me now because something had resurfaced. Legal issues. Identity verification. Medical compatibility. All tied to me. Not as a person. As a solution. That's why they reached out. After 12 years. Not for me. For what I represented. I remember sitting there, the folder open in my hands, and feeling something shift. Not anger. Not pain. Clarity. Because everything suddenly made sense. The silence. The note. The way they disappeared. It wasn't random. It was calculated. And now they were back. Because they had no other option. My father was talking. Explaining. Asking. But I wasn't really listening anymore. I had already made my decision. I closed the folder. Set it on the table. And stood up. For a second, they looked confused. Like this wasn't how the conversation was supposed to go. Maybe they expected emotion. Tears. Forgiveness. Or at least negotiation. But they didn't get any of that. Because the truth is, I had figured it out. Just like they said I would. And what I figured out was simple. You don't get to disappear from someone's life. And then come back when it's convenient. Not after 12 years. Not after everything. I walked to the door. Paused. Not for them. For myself. Because this was the moment that mattered. Not what they did. What I chose to do next. I didn't slam the door. Didn't say anything dramatic. I just left. And this time, I was the one who didn't look back.